Yeah, I know, I don't normally talk about the Dallas Stars. They're a team that I just don't really touch too much in these videos, and when I do, it usually involves some form of trade rumor or insightful discussion or former things that almost happened in the past. But the Dallas Stars in general don't really appeal to me when it comes to newsworthy-like topics. And that certainly was the case with this topic before I ended up reading a few of the quotes surrounding the story, let's just say. Today we're talking about Roman Polak, who, if you're a Leafs fan, if you're a Stars fan, if you're a fan of the NHL, you probably recognize the name of, and you probably know what he's kind of about. Roman Polak recently is a Dallas Stars defenseman who is currently under contract until the offseason. Yeah, he's going to be a free agent afterwards. He's 34 years old. He's a guy who is pretty much towards the tail end of his career. And earlier yesterday, it was revealed via the media that, hey, Roman Polak is going back to the Czech Republic next year. Turns out he already signed a contract with the hockey club Vítkovice Ridera. Now, this is a hockey club in the Czech Republic League. It's in the ELH, and he's going to be going over there for 2020-2021's hockey season, whenever that starts. However, he's still a contract player for the Dallas Stars, and with the whole quarantine and lockdown thing going on, plus the return-to-play format, as well as the Dallas Stars' own inclusion in the 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and yeah, I said playoffs because the Dallas Stars are good enough to actually be included in the playoff structure. They're one of the 4 Western Conference teams to already be guaranteed a spot in the Final 16, along with the Blues, the Avalanche, and the Vegas Golden Knights. So what does that mean for Roman Polak exactly? Well, it means, literally speaking, he's supposed to be in a situation where once the playoff starts, he comes back to Dallas, he plays, whatever happens, whether they win, whether they lose, whatever, it doesn't matter because he's going to go to Vítkovice Ridera next season. He's already signed, it's done. It's just, he needs to fulfill the end of his contract because his contract with the Dallas Stars got extended, as did every other contract in the NHL. And that on its own wouldn't be as juicy of a story enough for me to warrant making a video about it. But we actually had some quotes over here from Sean Shapiro on Twitter, citing a Czech interview that Roman Polak did with Sport.cz. There's some very interesting quotes in here that talk about how Roman Polak just, well, if it was up to him, he wouldn't want to come back to Dallas at all. He'd just want to stay in the Czech Republic, wait it out, and play for Vítkovice Ridera next season. Roman Polak has signed with the team back in the Czech Republic, and he told Sports.cz, "I am already determined to stay at home. If I really had to finish the NHL, I would go. But I would do everything to make it unnecessary. I will definitely be here in the Czech Republic next season." And I read this first tweet from Sean, and I was like, so it appears that Roman Polak just really doesn't want to come back. He would just rather stay in the Czech Republic, wait it out, and do everything in his power to prevent going back to the Dallas Stars organization, despite being committed there via contract. Now, Sean Shapiro links the actual article where this interview and the quotes came from. And the headline, when it's translated into English, goes over another Roman Polak quote. This quote says, "Finishing the NHL would be like a prison." Whoa, okay then. Those are some heavy words. Heavy words. Okay. Finishing in the NHL and wrapping up his final few games with the Dallas Stars would be like a prison. Okay. Let's continue with Sean Shapiro's tweet thread over here because he does bring up some very good points. Clarification that this is a contract for Polak for next season in the Czech League. He's a UFA whenever this season ends, so while he says he would return for whenever NHL season starts, which is like the playoffs, etc., there really isn't a punishment waiting if he just looks to go home and doesn't come back. Which makes sense. If he's a UFA at the end of the year, then, hey, he can sign wherever he wants, and if that is the Czech Republic, then he's free to do that. And of course, with the way the timelines and everything have worked out, some players are already signing contracts with teams for 2020-2021, which makes something like this not really super surprising, where even though he is still kinda supposed to be playing for Dallas, he's already signing a contract. Hey, we've seen other players from other leagues already sign contracts with the NHL, and other leagues in Europe have also gotten signees too. It's just the only difference is the NHL is the only league that actually intends to resume playing and finishing off their 2020 season. More from Roman Polak, thanks to another user, JVTech94 for better translations. This one's a little bit interesting too. I can't imagine playing games after just 3 weeks of practicing on the ice. I need 2 months to prepare. Otherwise, there's a risk of injury. That's honestly a pretty fair point. And for a guy who was at the end of his NHL career, 34 years old, like Roman Polak is, that time to practice, that time to recuperate yourself, retrain your body, and get used to being physical again is so much more important. So, for a Roman Polak to sit here and say, yeah, you know, I'm gonna suck. Like, I haven't skated in months. You think a 2-week training camp is gonna fix this? No, I need to be training the entire off-season in order to keep my physical shape up. That's honestly a pretty fair complaint. And somebody like Roman Polak is probably a little bit more prone to being affected by something like that than somebody who's at the beginning of their NHL career, like a Jack Hughes or a Quinn Hughes, or somebody who is young and youthful and filled with energy to the brim. Because it's just an inevitability. As you age, your body gets a little bit more worn out. So that's a totally fair criticism, in my opinion, to be honest. And then we have ourselves another quote here that I think kind of explains a little bit more of the psychology behind this idea here. He said that sometimes, when I was sitting on the bench in Dallas, I would ask myself, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. When Stephen Johns started playing again after a 2-year break caused by concussions, they gave him big ice time, and they told me and Andrei Sekera that we will be rotating. I play one game, he plays another game. It was difficult to find motivation, because there doesn't matter how well or badly I play. I won't play the next game in any case, and Andrei had the same opinion as me. So, with the way the Dallas Stars were rotating, Andrei Sekera and Roman Polak, and with Roman Polak's overall engagement with the team, I can totally understand now why, in the earlier quotes, he was like, yeah, you know, I really don't want to go back. I just want to go back to the Czech Republic, man. Finishing in the NHL would be like a prison. When it comes to a point where you're willing to openly admit to the media, sometimes I would sit down and I would think, what am I really doing here? Isn't that the ultimate signal of self-directed existentialism that describes the feelings of not really having that same heart that you once had before? Because I know, hey, if I, all of a sudden one day, in the middle of making a YouTube video, paused up and I said, what am I really doing this for? Why am I doing this? All of a sudden, that's a signal to me that says, you know, maybe it's time for a break, maybe it's time to stop, maybe it's time to turn your attention towards something else, because if it comes to that point where you're debating that with yourself, and especially when it comes to the point where you're willing to openly admit that to the media, I think it's time to go. Roman Polak has had a long, storied NHL career. He's had ups, he's had downs. A lot of people will say a lot of things about him, but you can't deny that the guy was an NHL pro for a very long time. And now, it looks like, just from the way he's talking, that the Czech Republic is where his next best interests lie. So, I didn't want to make this video seem super tabloidy, like, oh, he said this, he said that, but like the quotes are literally right there. He really just doesn't seem to want to come back to Dallas, and he even said that if he could, he'd do everything in his power to not return and not play in these playoff games. And for the most part, I've seen Dallas Stars fans, mostly on Reddit, saying things like, oh, this is great because now we have room for Thomas Harley to enter the system, and now we have room for less Roman Polak ice time, because say what you want about Polak, about his character, whatever, he wasn't necessarily the best on the ice, especially this past season. So there are goods and bads to either of this, but at the same time, we're dealing with a human being here who has expressed his human emotions, and I thought it was really interesting, so I wanted to make a video about it and share to you just the interesting workings of one of these NHL players and why he decides to go back home after all this time. So comment down below what you think about Roman Polak and this whole topic in general. I hope you enjoyed this video. So that's 99, and bye.